happy Friday, everybody. We're super excited that you're able to join us today for this important conversation about saving for your child's post-secondary education through our favorite way, the Registered Education Savings Plan. My name is Jackie McCann-Scott, and I am the owner and founder of Lupin Planning Group, a financial planning practice based in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. And I'm thrilled to be joined today by one of my fantastic team members, Elaine Manning. Elaine joined our Lupin group last year and brought with her a wealth of RESP knowledge and experience. And so committed to the product, she decided last year that she was going to have a baby so she could test it out in real time. So our Lupin baby Jasper, we like to call him. You may have seen him if you saw the promotions for today's conversation. He just turned 1 and I got to be there to celebrate his first birthday with the rest of the family. And we thought, well, what better way to bring Elaine back from baby brain and into the world of financial planning than to speak about a topic she knows a lot about, and that is certainly very near and dear to her heart. So Elaine, thank you so much for joining us today and for putting together this action-packed agenda of information that I think anyone who has a child in their life that they want to save for is going to be excited to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jackie. Yes, my little guy is not here with us this morning. I would love to bring him in and show you guys, but he's gone on a drive with his dad, so that's what he's doing right now. Definitely wanted to just talk about RESPs because, like you said, now that I have a little one, it's definitely more front of mind. And because I was in the RESP business, I really knew a lot about it, and I knew it was one of the first things I really wanted to do with my child when he came along. And it wasn't planned. That isn't the reason I had a baby, so I could open up an RESP. But it might not have been at the forefront of my mind if I hadn't been in this industry. So I think it is really important that we talk about it and that we share it and we get it out there because, especially for younger people, younger parents in their 20s, 30s, if you're not really, involved in your financial planning, if you haven't really thought about it, you might not even really know what an RESP is. So this is what we're here for today.
Perfect. Well, without further ado, we're going to jump right into the first slide. And this particular slide, when we were talking about it, we realized that you and I, it's been a while since either of us had to pay tuition for our own post-secondary educations. My children are 17 and 20, so I'm right in this sweet spot right now of having to start withdrawing from my RESP. So I thought about it as I was preparing for our conversation. Elaine, you're at the start and I'm kind of at the end. So we really do have the bookends here of the RESPs. But for anybody listening that is wondering, I wonder, one of the reasons why you're choosing to give some of your time up today to find out about RESPs is probably because you know that this is going to be a huge expense your family's going to face, but you don't really have a true sense of what that could look like. So, Elaine, I appreciate that you went in and you pulled together, some information to give people an idea of, what the current cost would be per semester, which is important to say, for a range of different post-secondary programs. And a lot of these I noticed do cover off what we would consider university or 4-year degree granting type programs. But I think it's important to note that, private trades, skilled trades, private colleges, online programs. This is just a snapshot. In my experience, I know my son, is currently attending college in the North Atlantic, and his tuition there, is fairly similar to what he was paying when he was at Memorial. And some of the programs that they offer there are even more expensive. So it's just to kind of blow that chart up a little bit for people. So yeah, if you're looking to be a teacher.
Absolutely, Jackie. I'm just wondering now, I don't see that on my screen. Are you, is it being shared?
I'm very sorry. Thank you very much for that. It's probably not being shared.
Okay.
Go for now, yeah. So let's just go back. So this is just, can you see that there now?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Wouldn't be a presentation if there wasn't a little bit of technical difficulties. So yeah, so the cost per semester of some of these programs, can range from 5,000 to 15,000. So, a 4 to 5 year program certainly is going to cost a lot. So I don't think we need to belabor that point a whole lot. What you did do though was show us that the average per semester cost, you're in the range of about $6,500. So, obviously there is a huge expense that parents of young children know they need to prepare for. And, these just give that number some context. So tell us about, the different ways people can save, Elaine.
So there are lots of ways that different people can save. So if you click to the next slide, we have, some people say when we start the initial conversation about education savings, like, okay, we already have something started in a TFSA, or we're saving in a high interest savings account, we got her covered. That is a fabulous way to start, and it's a great way to get the ball rolling on any kind of savings. But what I really want to highlight here is the difference of an RESP versus those different avenues that you can take for saving. Another thing some people do is, maybe they didn't save at the beginning of the child's life, like from the early years, and they end up having to draw from the RRSP. So I have a lot of people saying that, well, I had to take out from my retirement savings. So this little chart just basically shows some of the benefits of these different avenues of saving. So like I said, an RRSP, if you have to take it out at the end, there's a big tax implications of doing that. And of course, you're affecting your retirement years, which, we really want to avoid doing because you have all that hard-earned savings for that reason. A high interest savings account is a good way to do it, as I mentioned, but of course, they don't collect the grants that are available in an RESP, which we're going to get into now just in a moment. And of course, a tax-free savings account is a tax-deferred way to save money. There's compound interest. You can get that money out tax-free, a great way to save money, but you're missing out on the government grant portion that an RESP provides. So this is what I wanted to highlight. So if you skip one more, spoiler alert, we love the RESP for education savings because it has all of the elements that you need to make the most out of your money. You get that tax deferral, meaning there's no tax throughout the life of the plan on your personal contributions or the grants that go in. And any interest that you earn is being compounded. So year over year, when you make some interest, it's being invested right there for you again. And at the end of the plan, it comes out in two portions, and I'll walk you through that in just a few minutes as well. But the big part about an RESP is the government grant.
Absolutely. We love free money. If we can find
Right.
it, we're going to find it for sure. So let's talk about just an overview then. As you said, alert. While there's lots of ways to save, and we didn't even mention taking out a loan, which I know I did, and I think you did, and that student debt was really a burden and delayed not only my ability to start saving for my own children, but my ability to save for retirement as well. So
Yeah.
we didn't even put that there as an option because there's always a better way than borrowing to fund an education, and especially if you're taking the time to inform yourself and become knowledgeable. So RESPs, we talked about the tax deferral growth, we talked about the compounding interest, we'll get into the grants in a moment, and obviously you get your contributions back tax free, and the interest is structured to be as tax efficient as possible. Give us some
Yes.
other benefits, Elaine.
Well, when you open up an RESP and you're contributing and watching it grow all throughout the years, you might wonder, what happens when it comes time to graduate? How do I access the money? What does my child need to do? Is it going to be, a hard thing to do to figure out how to get the money out and what happens to it? The good news is it's fairly simple when it comes time to take out the plan, and there's lots of options. So you can go to full or part-time studies anywhere in Canada or abroad. So some people think that it has to be a university program, it has to be full-time, they have to complete 4 years straight. That is not the case. You can start and stop programs, you can switch programs. So there's a lot of flexibilities in these plans. So that's one of the really great things. And at maturity time, when it comes to time to take the money out, there are options as well if the child decides they're not ready to go to post-secondary. Because sometimes, if you talk to a teenager in grade 11 or 12 and you ask them what they want to be or what they want to go on and do and for next steps, some kids have it figured out, some kids don't.
Mm-hmm.
And you can leave it open for up to 35 years. So if the child, takes even a 2, 3, 5 year break, the money is still going to be invested and going to be ready for when your child is ready to make that step.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
it's important to know too, I appreciate that you talk about how flexible these things are to access at maturity, but it's also really important to note that they're really flexible to set up as well. So,
Yeah.
the maximum amount that you can contribute for a child is $50,000 over their lifetime, but there really is no minimum amount. A very small contribution can start the ball rolling. And anyone that's worked with me have heard me say, it's your habits and not your dollars that'll get you where you want to go. So
Yeah.
starting those habits early of having a regular amount, it can be changed over time. It can be topped up if financial circumstances allow. And how you choose to invest that money is really up to you. So working with someone like yourself or I to identify, what kind of risk you want to take with the money that you're setting aside for the future, and monitoring that progress. So I guess if there's anything to take away from this one slide, it's that there's flexibility at the beginning, there's flexibility at the end, and there's lots to be gained in the middle. Would that be a fair summary of this slide, Elaine?
Absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head there. A lot of people start small. You can start as low as $25 if you wanted to, and go from there. And then maybe once mat leave is finished, you can then bump it up to something that fits your budget and your family's household. So yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely.
All right. So let's talk a little bit more about these grants and this free money, because that makes me happy.
Yeah, well, this is what it's all about. I mean, literally, there's $7,200 set aside for every child in Canada to collect, and it's on the table for you. So why not collect that? An RESP is basically a guaranteed 20% return because of this grant, and that's going to be reinvested for you. So your contributions are being invested, and then the grants are coming in on top of that and being invested as well. So no matter what your personal income and your family net income is, you qualify for the basic grant, which is 20%. Okay. And then depending on different salary ranges, you can get up to
No, go
30 and
have a look.
40%. Yeah.
Yeah, let's have a look at those
Yeah.
salary ranges.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can see here if your net household income is around 53,000 or less, you're going to actually get 40% grant on the first 500 that you put into the RESP, and then 20% thereafter. If you're between 53 and 100, you're going to get the extra 10%, which is for 30% on that first 500 contribution, and then 20% thereafter. If you're over and above 106,000 as a net family, then it's going to be the basic 20%, which is an awesome amount.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, just to kind of summarize for anybody that's watching today, you put $1 in, you're going to get the government grant on that dollar. You're going to get interest on your dollar and interest on the government dollar. So one contribution grows in four different ways.
Yes, absolutely.
And over that 18-year, potentially 18, or like as you said, plans can be invested for up to 35 years to really give that child time to figure out what they want to be when they grow up. Over that entire period of time, I, as the parent contributing, or my child as the beneficiary of those contributions, will not have to pay tax on that money. That's what we mean when we talk about the tax deferral growth. And I always say to clients, tax deferred is tax saved. If you're not having to claim this with the rest of your income and pay taxes on it, that means you get to keep every dollar of that until that child needs it. So, it's really powerful, powerful stuff to be able to grow a dollar in such a meaningful way.
It is. And it's also important to note that the 7,200 is over the lifetime of the plan. So you can collect grants to maximum of $500 to $600 every single year. And that translates, if you're wondering how much that is annually, if you're putting in an annual $2,500 contribution, whether that's a one-time lump sum or you spread that out quarterly or monthly, most people do monthly, but you can always top up and change that at any time.
Right.
Yeah.
I love it. And speaking of free money, let's talk about the Canada Learning Bond.
Yeah, the Canada Learning Bond is a second grant that's available. This isn't available for everybody. This one is a $2,000 grant. It's intended for lower income or single income households that might not have the ability to put in money at this time. And it's a really great option because if you're on maternity leave and your income is cut in half, this is a great way to start because you can open up a plan. No contributions are required. The only thing required will be the social insurance number for the child. So make sure you get that right away if you have a baby, because that's what's going to allow you to unlock this grant. And how it works, if you qualify, which is about an under a 50K threshold, You apply, and $500 is initially put into the RESP for the child, and that's being invested right away. And every year, $100 goes in until the child turns 15 and up to a maximum of $2,000.
right?
So fabulous, literally free money if you qualify.
100%. And it's retroactive. I've had clients come in that, well, I never started anything in the past because, my income was low, my cash flow was strained, and I get that. They might still, because it's adjusted net family income, so it's not your gross. So your net, even if your gross is a little higher, there's ways we can structure it to get you below that, that net threshold. And, if they've got a 3 or 4 year old and they're only now really feeling like we have the capacity to have these conversations, there could be right off the bat, $800 to $1,000 of retroactive Canada Learning Bond that would be applied to their plan, and they came in with nothing and they leave not only with cash in hand or in their RESP, but now they feel hopeful. And I think hopefulness is the thing that keeps us all moving forward, so this to me is great. Absolutely. And as the daughter of a single parent, I wish that this had existed back years ago when I was a child and my mom was raising me and my brother, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We missed out on the grants, I think,
We
but
did, but
it's
that's
so
why
exciting.
we're
Yeah,
here. To help,
that's
yeah.
why we're
So let's
sharing.
fast forward. Let's fast forward. So we've set up what makes sense for our family. We've chosen the right contribution amount. We've, invested it according to our goals and our risk tolerance. We've collected every dollar that the government was willing to give us. And now, this is happening to me. I was out grad dress shopping with my daughter just a couple
Woo.
of months. So yeah, it's crazy. And I'm going to be accessing her money. So, for people watching today, tell us how to do that.
Well, essentially, when it comes time for maturity, which means your child is graduating high school and they're ready to move on to that next step of post-secondary, all that's required to unlock the RESP is a verification of enrollment. So as long as your child is enrolled, it can be either part-time or full-time into an eligible institution in Canada or abroad. The RESP is there for you to use. You can take the money out. We do have a link that shows all the eligible institutions right from the government website. So we can share that in the chat if anybody wants to take a look, or if you have any questions, you can look that up. But there's a lot. Basically, if it's a legit school, you're good to go. And when you have that verification of enrollment and it's time to take the money out, it comes out in two portions. So any personal contributions that were put into the RESP over the life of the plan is taken out tax-free. So the subscriber, whoever put that money in, gets that money back. Then the second portion is the interest that was earned on your money, the government grants that were collected, and the interest that were on the grant. So that's a big pool of money there, and the student draws from that, right?
Right.
That portion taken from the student is considered income and taxable in the student's hands. And they do that to minimize the tax implications at that time, because a lot of students either, they might have a summer job or no job. So there's not going to be a whole lot to consider there.
Mhm.
So it is something to keep in mind at tax time, because, if your child does happen to have, a great summer job, that could affect income. So something to keep in mind at the end there. And it's a really good reason to talk to your financial planner when it comes time to take the money out.
Absolutely. The other
Yeah.
thing too, in terms of, trying to minimize those tax consequences, is that regardless who pays your child's tuition, typically your parent or caregiver, the child gets to claim that tuition credit first against any income that they have. And only after they've used all the benefit of that tuition credit against their income does any remaining portion get transferred to their parents. So it's really good, opportunities there for you to have enjoyed that 18 or plus years of tax deferred growth on your investment, and now you're taken out in a way that ultimately, you may not end up paying any taxes even on the growth. So it's
Yes.
quite savvy, and we always say around here, when you know better, you can do better. And this is one of those situations for sure, where a little bit of, guidance from a trusted advisor like you or I can certainly make all the difference, because it's not just about what you make,
Absolutely.
it's what you get to keep of what you make, right? And that's important.
Exactly, exactly.
All right. So the next slide is what I call the elephant in the room. You addressed it a little bit at the beginning in your intro to the topic of registered education savings plans, but I'm glad you did it at the beginning. Maybe we should have done it at the beginning in more detail, because I find a lot of people have this mental block around setting up a plan because they're like, yeah, but what if they don't go to school? We're not going to get our money back if they don't go to school. That's the catch. They don't tell you about that, Jackie. And I'm like, well, actually, we're quite aware of that. And that's not a problem. Certainly not a reason not to start saving. As you mentioned, part-time, full-time studies. It's actually as little as a 3-week course can qualify a student as, to receive proceeds from an RESP. 3-week course, 10 hours of study a week. I mean, that, is very, very minimal threshold for, someone to overcome to benefit from their RESP. But I think a lot of the misconceptions come from the way plans were structured years ago. We all heard the story of so-and-so's son or daughter who didn't go to school and they lost it all. Things have changed, and that's why we're doing this session, is to let people know that there's so much flexibility. Can you walk us through that?
Oh, absolutely. And I think you touched on it there, a lot of it there as well, Jackie. Like, it's not the way it used to be. So if you do ever hear those stories, just know that that was then, this is now. The plans have evolved to match today's students and what they need, and that means flexibility. So as mentioned, you can leave the plan open for up to 35 years for whenever your child is ready. If yet the oldest child decides not to go to school, or they might get a gravy job and they know that they're going to be there for a while and they're going to be able to grow and develop in their field, that's great, because you can actually change the beneficiary to a subsequent child. If you have more children down the line, even nieces or nephews, you can change the beneficiary. So lots of flexibility there if you have somebody else in your family that you care about that could avail of that. um, Another option is rolling it over into a retirement savings plan. So if you've been saving all these years and your child either doesn't need it all or doesn't need any of it, you can choose to roll that over into the RRSP. Something to keep in mind here, though, if it's not being used for educational purposes, the grants do go back to the government because that's earmarked for education alone. So
Right.
that's the only portion that would be lost. But really, something to think about here is that you're always going to get your contributions back. You're going to get the interest from your contributions, as you mentioned earlier. And again, remember, the interest on the grants is still yours. So you're still in a really great position for saving and rolling that over into the RRSP. It then takes on the life and the taxes and the rules and regulations of that type of investment. So maybe you can speak to a little bit of that in a moment. But another way you could take the money out, if you didn't have the contribution room for the RSP, you could stagger it, or you can just decide to take the money out as an accumulated income payment. And essentially what that is that you have access to your money, but there might be a little bit of a fee attached to that, or again, some tax implications, but the option there is to take that money out. Not very often this happens, but it is good to have
At
it as
all.
a backup. It's very rare.
Very rare. Well, I've been in the financial services industry for 23 years, and I've helped families, hundreds of families, access proceeds from their RESPs. And as we were preparing for today's conversation, I started looking back into the archives, as it were, and I've done that twice for clients. So,
Wow.
2 out of hundreds that haven't been able to have the money somehow directed to their child. Again, it doesn't happen a whole lot. And I just want to, highlight for people that when we talk about the accumulated income payment, that is only the interest portion that you're going to ultimately have to be taxed on if we weren't able to either pay it to your beneficiary, your student, or pay it to your future self in the form of an RSP contribution. You're taking it today as cash. Your contribution, to your point, Elaine, is still tax free. The interest portion that you have to take out and you're not able to give to a child or to your retirement, that's what's taxed. And you can choose who you want to take that. So if you have, 2 parents that are named on this account, the lower earning parent could take the accumulated income to keep them in a lower tax bracket. Or you can take it
Perfect.
out over a couple of tax years, again, to work with all the tools available to, potentially pay no tax, even if you as a parent take it, depending on your circumstances. So lots of, choice and flexibility there. But because of the first 2 points, being able to keep it for a long time, change beneficiaries, and the fact that the program is so, you know, um, so varied in terms of what qualifies as post-secondary, we rarely get to these other options, but we wanted to address them and let people know they exist.
Yeah, no, exactly. Once people realize how easy it is to access the money, like you said, a 3-week program, like a certificate, I'm pretty sure most kids could find something that they're interested in that could be a 3-week program to get their hands on this money. And we never really touched on this yet, Jackie, is the fact that the money isn't just used for tuition. Like some parents think that you can only use this money for school and you have to kind of have line items and have
I
checks
know.
and balances. When you get this money, you can use it as you wish. You can pay your tuition, you can put gas in your car, you can pay the rent, you can buy food. You use this money for your life, and it's up to you to kind of manage that and budget it and how you wish and how you see fit. So, it's not just for school. It's to help you get off your feet in post-secondary.
Absolutely. And that's why when you talked about, what do you have to provide in terms of accessing your money, verification of enrollment is it.
That's it.
So, people, again, we talk about that was then, this is now. People have this misconception that I'll have to provide receipts to my RESP provider to show that every dollar was specifically related to my child's education costs like tuition and books and things. But the reality is the government, first of all, that's very intrusive. It probably violates a lot of privacy.
Yeah,
And at the end of the day, if they know your child is enrolled in a program, they know that in some way, shape, or form, every dollar that they have access to is allowing them to pursue their post-secondary education and cover all the costs that go along with that. So they don't need to see an
absolutely.
itemized breakdown. So I'm really glad you mentioned that because we didn't mention that earlier. All
Yeah, yeah.
right. So setting it up. Let's talk about setting it up. You know that this
It's
is a good thing. How
yeah.
do we do it?
It's fairly easy. Really, what you need to have as a parent to start the conversation and to get things rolling is your social insurance number. Now, sometimes you can start plans without the social insurance number and provide it after. That's great. So if you're worried and you're ready to get this started, but you don't want to, wait on the government for this, no worries, we can do that. But the SIN is required to collect the grant. So if we don't have that within a certain time frame, there's a risk of the plan having to shut down and things like that. So we like to avoid that by making sure that you have this in upfront or as soon as possible so we can, get the ball rolling. So once we have the social insurance number, it's just a matter of contacting your financial advisor, like you or I, and sitting down and having a conversation because an RESP is an investment and it's not always, um, easy to look at it in one silo. Looking at the whole picture and figuring out what your goals are for education, what your budget is, your risk assessment, like we would for any investment, and then we
Mhm.
would go through the paperwork, and we have a variety of different insurance and investments companies that we work with, and we would find the right plan that works for you. And then it's paperwork time. It's a matter of maybe 10 to 15 minutes of paperwork. We sign it really easily on an e-app, which is how technology changed the last few years, made it a
Absolutely. Yeah.
yes, made it a lot nicer for us. And of course, you can always reach out and talk to your advisor over time and monitor how those plans evolve.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
We definitely do, keep you informed over the life of the plan. So, we have most of our suppliers now will allow clients, to your last point there about self-serve, they'll be able to log in to their portal, look at how their plan is growing, look at how the grants are being attracted, how the investments are growing. Obviously, we meet with them on a regular basis to monitor those statements and review the progress. And then we also make adjustments. For
Yeah.
example, as the child gets closer to graduation, maybe our risk has really dropped now. We don't want to take any risk with this money. We definitely want to make sure that the funds will be there when they need them. So, yeah, it's a super simple process. And, your first step is to reach out to that trusted financial advisor. So, a couple of final
Absolutely.
thoughts here before we let everyone go on the rest of their lunch break today.
Yeah. So something we didn't talk about is the Canada Child Benefit. And this is really, a tax-free payment that's coming from the government every single month once you have a child, if you qualify for it. So if you're getting that money and you're wondering, what can I do with it? Or where am I going to find the money to pay for an RESP? Or how am I going to do that? A lot of families line up their RESP contribution to come out on the 20th or 21st of each month, aligned with this Canada Child Benefit, so that a portion or all of it can go right into the RESP. So if you think about it, the government is putting tax-free money into your account. You take that money, put it into your RESP. Government grants go on top of it. You could essentially fund your entire education savings plan on government money alone if you took that strategy and if you had the means to do it. So that's a
Absolutely.
really a really good way. Yeah, it's a good way to find that money. And another thing, I'm getting this a lot from like my parents and the in-laws. What can we get Jasper for Christmas? And what's going to happen? And my parents, they don't want to get him more things. He has lots of things. So this is a real meaningful way that, parents and grandparents and, aunts, uncles can gift and kind of invest in the child's future education. So it's a really good Christmas idea as well. And again, anyone can open. So if you can have multiple, if you have an RESP open and, maybe you're not in this situation where, the parent can easily transfer money for you to contribute, somebody else in your family could open up a secondary SP and make contributions on your child's behalf as well. You're still going to be at the 50,000 contribution limit. It's tracked by social insurance number, and you're still going to be maxed at 7,200 for the grant per child, even though there's multiple RESPs open. So
Yeah.
again, lots of options.
But it's a great divide and conquer strategy. I have
Yeah,
many grandparents that come in here and they will, say it's birthday time again. Here's our contribution to our grandchild's education. And I had one gentleman say to me, and it was a really touchy moment. He said, I'm in my 70s right now. I may not be here when they are ready to graduate high school and pursue their post-secondary education, but a little bit of me will be there to help make that reality. And it was just a lovely moment. So I think that's super
it's
important.
yes, so true, so true. And that reminded me, Jackie, again, if a grandparent opens a plan, it's important to be mindful that you can only contribute up to age 80. So if you have older grandparents and they want to open up a plan, it might only be for a shorter period of time, or it might be simpler for them to just give you a lump sum. So again, knowing that 80 is the max age that you can start contributing to these plans. So
Point.
yeah.
All right. So, last but not least, if you've been inspired by today's conversation, I know I am, and again, I'm on the end where I'm going to be starting to draw down on the benefits. But realistically, back when we first had our children, and starting out in our lives, new homeowners and all the things that clutch or cash flow, it was really difficult to see a way forward in terms of putting some dollars into an education plan. But once you start and you make that initial step, you just forget about it in some way, shape, or form. The proceeds just are paid every month. And now, and a few years ago when our oldest child graduated, it was so rewarding to not have to stress about how are we going to fund this, where's the money coming from. It was just like, it's there, it's ready. Let's get you enrolled, buddy, and get get this thing going. And we'll have a year where they'll be overlapping in school, and that would be a huge financial burden, especially for our youngest who wants to go to med school. So you
Well,
know yeah, so it's really nice to know that we've prepared for that, and it doesn't set back our own retirement plans because we
awesome.
pay for their education. So yeah, I'd encourage anybody to reach out to any of us. We're always here and happy to help. Our contact information is on the screen. I call it the Fab Four. We have four fierce, fabulous females that make Lupin Planning Group a wonderful place to be. And yeah, thank you to everyone who's watching this or who joined us live. And if there's any questions, you can certainly put them in the chat, or you can reach out to us after today's conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jackie. Have a great
Thank
day,
you.
everybody.
Don't see any questions in the chat. So I'm going to assume that that is a wrap, folks. So thank you so much. Look forward to chatting with you again soon.